What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video or episode of the 10-7 MMA Show. We are back with our last episode of 2024. This is it, because we're not doing another show until Friday. So this is kind of our wrap-up. We actually have kind of a lot of news that has come out in the last weekend, even though there are no fights, but there have been some announcements. Some, I think, maybe have been troll announcements, and we're going to talk about that in a second, aka talking about Conor versus Logan. I made an impromptu video yesterday because I thought this huge announcement had been made, and I'm now starting to think it's not really an announcement. It was more just a media play, and I'm going to tell you guys more about why I think that is. We're talking, of course, about Conor McGregor versus Logan Paul. So I since brought that video, I changed it to unlisted because I said Conor McGregor versus Logan Paul is real, and I talked about how it was happening. Now, where I got that from primarily, not to throw our boy Jesse on fire under the bus, but I did get it from, he posted a stream yesterday talking about it. And there were two news sources that I looked up that also said it was happening. But if you dig deeper, it was literally just the Mac Life and some other random organization. There have been some stories that have come out subsequently, but no announcement from the UFC. And most telling, Ariel Helwani did not touch that topic today. It's got to tell you something. So I don't think this is nearly as solidified as we thought, but we're still going to talk about it anyways. We're going to talk about what is suspected to be true or maybe suspected to be materializing. Also, upon further thought and investigation, the numbers just don't make sense. Anyways, we'll talk about that later, and we'll get into all that stuff. But Justin, you're back in Michigan. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, man. Just got here. It's freaking nice here. It's like 50, 60 degrees. Got a light little sweater on. Yeah, I changed the time today. My son had wrestling practice. He came over this morning and sprung me on that. He has wrestling practice at 4 o'clock, and I was like, shit. And they asked me to come in and show some techniques and stuff. So got to try to get that work in.
Very cool. Yeah, I was in North Carolina last week. The weather was also really good the last few days, so I think it's all kind of happening on that East Coast Midwest vibe. Toronto says, what's up, guys? Not much. We're just closing out the year in 2024, so let's see what's going down. All right, now, first story that we're going to cover, which is very exciting, very, very exciting, is we have Paddy versus Chandler. Finally been announced, finally official. And this is something that we talked about earlier. And Justin's got a video that we're going to post later today about his thoughts on this fight. But when I heard that this was possible, I got very excited. But Justin, I want to turn it over to you first. What's your level of excitement and why? Can you talk about this fight a little bit?
Yeah, I'm very excited about this fight, man. I think this is an incredible matchup, an incredible step up for competition. This is the UFC has done an incredible job building Paddy Pimblett. You know, he's 6-0 in the UFC. You know, he just fought, veteran Tony Ferguson, and everyone's like, oh, Tony sucks. He's lost 7 fights in a row, guys. We cannot forget that at one point, Tony was 1 fight away. He was scheduled to fight Khabib multiple times. The guy was an animal in the division. Unfortunately, the end of his career wasn't like the beginning or the end. But, guys, this guy was the real deal at one point. Paddy went in there and handled him relatively easily. Now, we look at Michael Chandler. He's 2-4 in the UFC, which doesn't sound great. But you look at the guys he's fought. He's fought all top 5 guys. This is a huge step up for Paddy, and this could be a great passing of the torch, man. And if you're not excited about this fight, you should be. And I'll tell you what, I think Paddy's going to be a huge underdog in this fight. But this is the UFC building a guy and now giving him an opportunity at a really tough fight. When we look at the striking comparison, I think Mike Chandler has the better resume for striking. I think he's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger. He has better technique. When you talk about the wrestling, I'm also going to give Chandler the edge there. Division I wrestler, although he doesn't use his wrestling as much as we'd like to see, the guy can still wrestle. And then we talk about the grappling. Even if Paddy is better than him at grappling, which I'm not going to say he is or isn't, this is the closest one that I've thought. Oh, I think I just missed it. This is the closest thing that I think they are on paper. But, he just fought Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira had his back and couldn't finish. So I think it's going to be really tough.
All right, we're losing you, Justin. You're breaking up. Okay, so this is we're gonna Justin, you're kind of cutting out, so I'm gonna mute your mic for 1 second, and then hopefully it'll come back once you get a better signal. But I do want to say, okay, here's the thing we're trying to get better at, or I'm trying to get better at, is deciphering a lot of the nonsense stories that are coming out about MMA and the real ones. And I gotta say, I was just checking this, right? So I sent Justin and Louisa, who also helps us behind the scenes, yesterday a post saying, hey, Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett, it's official, it's happening for UFC London. And now, upon further investigation, I was looking up additional stories just to see what other people are saying about this fight. And there's a post from Paddy Pimblett saying, don't know why people even taking notice of this. Somebody running this page hasn't got a clue what he's talking about, basically saying this is not official yet. Who knows? It still might happen, but I just wanted to clarify. So the fight, I know we put in here, it is official. And I feel like it's totally my fault. I made the mistake yesterday. We're getting better. I'm going to be more careful about where we're sourcing these stories from. So I want to retract the fact that it is official, but hey, maybe it's still theoretical. So we'll still say Paddy versus Chandler as a theoretical fight. Again, there was that cryptic note in Paddy's video alluding, saying, hey, I'll see you at the top. So maybe it will happen, but I don't think anything is official yet. There's no sources reporting on this fight. But going back to this fight and to the matchup, I do agree that this would be an incredible fight. I hope it happens. And again, Paddy has said, he's gone on record saying he wants to fight higher ranked opponents and move up the ladder. Michael Chandler, this is perfect. He just comes off a loss, as you mentioned, from Charles Oliveira. Let's see what they can do. A lot of people have said that Paddy Pimblett is way better than he's given credit for. First guy ever to submit King Bobby Green. So there's a lot of things. And as you mentioned, that Tony Ferguson victory was still pretty impressive. He's got a lot of skills, and I think people overlook him because of his goofy persona, maybe because of his massive weight fluctuations. But he's a beast. He's a great fighter. I'd love to see this matchup. Maybe it's theoretical. Maybe it's not even possible, but I think it would be incredible. So let's see what happens on that front. All right, Justin. Oh, I think we lost Justin again. Okay. Tehran says, be prepared because Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker will be announced soon for UFC 313 in March. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard about this fight. This fight's going to be incredible. So Tehran says, be prepared because Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker will be announced soon. And that's going to be incredible. We didn't talk about that. What's your opinion on Justin Gaethje, your favorite fighter, taking on Dan Hooker?
Man, it's a scrap, dude. Dan Hooker is an animal, and I'm really curious. Gaethje bounces back after that brutal loss to Max Holloway. We've talked about coming back from injuries, coming back from huge knockouts like the one that Justin Gaethje, received. That can be life changing. That can be career changing. That might make him hesitant. It might have loosened his head up a little bit more. And I think Dan Hooker's awesome, man. Oscar Willis, one of my favorite journalists, good friend of mine, is really good friends with Dan Hooker. This is a battle and the thing is, it's another striker's delight, guys. Dan Hooker, incredible, dynamic striking. He's not afraid to spin. He's not afraid to get in there and mix it up. And then you have, the highlight reel, Justin Gaethje, man. Dude, the announcements on some of these fights, like the Paddy Pimblett fight, I know it's not official, but man, what an incredible step up in competition. What an incredible opportunity being 6-0. Now you have Dan Hooker. It's kind of in the same boat as Paddy, although he has taken some losses. He goes against Justin Gaethje. He beats Justin Gaethje. Both of these guys have an opportunity to be in the top 10, top 8, and possibly even top 5 with solidifying victories over both of these opponents.
Oh, for sure. Dan Hooker's man.
How about a 4-man tournament, Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker, and then Paddy versus Mike, and the winner of both fight gets to fight for that top 5 spot. I think that would be incredible. I think it'd be huge for the UFC.
That'd be sweet. It's such a sad thing that you do mention, and I talked to somebody last week about this, that once you kind of take a bad knockout, you're that much more susceptible. There was a guy that I was talking to. He played, I believe it was Australian football or something growing up. And he said that he had gotten a lot of concussions over and over throughout that period. And then later in life, I think when he got into his 30s, he started getting interested in boxing. So he started doing some sparring in boxing. And he said he would just get knocked out so easily. And the coaches were like, yeah, that wasn't that tough of a shot, that hard of a shot, but you took it and you got knocked out. And the theory was, again, because he's had so many concussions that he can get his lights shut out so quickly. That's a scary thing. Hopefully, I hope that's not the case for Justin Gaethje. That would be sad because that's one of the things is his toughness and his chin is his durability, which is tremendous. So I hope has not been impacted, but I guess we shall see very shortly. But what a great matchup. And Dan Hooker, he's one of those guys too that has an incredible personality, and you just gravitate towards him. I think he has the makings to be he already is a star in his own right. I think a lot of a lot of more diehard UFC fans, we all know who he is. We love him, but I think he could be really, really massive. Let's see what happens on that front. Thanks for that announcement, Tehran. And Tehran says, I think Justin will be fine. I guess we shall see. All right, moving on. Now we got to talk about this story because actually I did see Brendan Schaub talk about this today. I think he's treating it like I did yesterday, that it is a real announcement, a real story that Conor versus Logan is actually happening. He talks about the payout. I don't know. I don't know if it's as real anymore. Literally nobody else is covering it. I think Jesse kind of jumped the gun. I think Brendan kind of jumped the gun as well. But we're going to look at some stories right now just to kind of parse through the veracity of this announcement, whether or not it's official or it's just sort of speculation, or it's Conor trying to press the UFC to make a decision like this. You know what I mean? Like push their hand into getting him a fight. I don't know exactly what's going on. But, we lost Justin again. All right. So anyways, we're going to look. Oh, wait, let's see. Tehran says, plus Justin already beating up at that point. Right. Getting a fresher Gaethje would not have gotten knocked out. Fair enough. Let's look at some stories here. I want to see if anything else new has come out. I did see a story from the India Times, and we'll kind of do a little investigation. Cool. Oh, look. There's a new story right here talking about Jake Paul's promotion. Here, let's check this out. Pouring water on this here. Look at this. So let's see this right here. Jake Paul's boxing promotion pour cold water on $500 million Conor McGregor fight. Jake Paul's boxing promotion have called foul. Here we go. Exactly. Have called foul on the talks of Brother Logan's big $250 million fight. The controversial brothers have taken the combat world by storm, blah, blah, blah. McGregor's claimed that there are preliminary agreements, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's what we heard before. Last night, a report from social media account Talk Sport journalist Michael Benson managed to trick news outlets. Yeah, I feel like such a fool. I feel like I'm learning, guys. I'm learning as we're going along on how to really investigate and check the veracity of these statements and these stories. So I was had as well. In my defense, I was trusting Jesse on Fire's stream, but I think he definitely jumped the gun. It's all good. We make mistakes. The report cited an imaginary Dan Raphael. I didn't even remember that. And the fight would take place at Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. It also said it would be a Visit India tourism drive, which appears not to be a real campaign. This whole thing was a sham. This is insane. However, what made it more remarkable was when McGregor's news, like this is what got me. It was the Mac Life. I'm like, this is Conor McGregor's own news organization. How would they be reporting something false? But apparently they got fooled as well. And the Irishman collaborated on the post. So maybe, I mean, they knew it was not legitimate, but they just hyped it up, right? It follows his initial claims about the fight having preliminary agreements, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now here's what Jake Paul's promotion said. And again, if this is real, Ariel Helwani would have talked about it today. He did not talk about it at all. He paid it no attention. So to me, that tells you everything you need to know because Ariel Helwani is the ultimate, is the story. Oh, we got Justin back in the mix. All right, Justin, we got you back in the mix. I know we lost you again. So,
yeah,
so anyways,
dude,
what I was
whenever
saying
we start
is,
this call, I think people know that they have to call me, and they have to call and keep fucking it up. But anyways, go ahead.
We'll put it on next time. We'll maybe put it on do not disturb mode or something. Hopefully that will stop the calls from coming in.
I was gonna say, will that block them off? You think?
Yeah, it should. We'll experiment with it.
Well, I didn't know
so,
that. Sorry.
So that's all good. It's all good. So check this out. As I was saying, like, hey, we're going to check some stories to check the veracity of this story right off the bat. Apparently, all these things it was a hoax. It was a whole hoax. And I hate to say I got taken. But in my defense, as I mentioned before, Jesse on Fire did a whole stream on it. So I'm like, okay, this is I was like asking him on the stream, is this legit? He's like, dude, it's been announced. But I think he jumped the gun. Then I subsequently jumped the gun. So I'm sorry to everybody if you did watch our video. It didn't get that many views, thankfully. And then I pulled it down and made it unlisted. I'm going to do a way better job on my side of now verify. I can't believe there's so many fake accounts that are saying this nonsense. It's really annoying. But look, apparently this campaign, it said, where was it? It said it's going to be in the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai and part of a Visit India tourism drive, all made up. There's no such thing as Visit India tourism drive. So here's what Jake Paul said. He said, underneath Conor McGregor's post, they commented with 3 hat emojis, essentially saying cap on cap on cap. Jake is believed to have been the original opponent, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now it all makes sense why Conor McGregor and his management team have been desperately trying to get MVP to negotiate a fight. As we told them privately, oh no, this is an old tweet. Yeah, okay. So anyways, we're not seeing much more new stuff. But this is this story was saying Jake Paul's throwing cold water on it. They're actually recycling an old tweet that he had posted before. Jake Paul's promotion. Yeah, okay. Here's another story covering Jake Paul's promotion saying they're delivering bad news here. Let's just see what this story says. The one thing, okay. Oh, yeah. This is him just saying cap on cap on cap. Basically, that's all they said. They're saying it's a lie. Now, the one thing that I'm happy about in terms of this being nonsense is I made multiple videos saying why I thought this fight would never happen. And I was shocked that it was happening. You don't want to see it happen. We're going to talk to you about that in a second. But I was shocked because I felt like this puts too much of the brand legacy of the UFC on the line, because Conor McGregor could easily lose to Jake Paul in a boxing match. And if you have somebody who is perceived, whether he's obviously not, but if he's perceived to be the biggest star, and hence by the public at large who don't know anything about mixed martial arts, the best mixed martial artist out there, and he goes in and loses to Logan Paul, that's a bad look for the company. I said this time and again, regardless of the payout, it's too damaging potentially to the brand. And then I thought, well, maybe I was wrong. I guess I was wrong. Maybe I don't understand the business like I thought I did. But the fact that it's now being dialed back or being just a giant hoax, that makes me feel better that my initial feelings were correct. But anyways, Justin, let me turn it over to you. In the fact, I know Conor wants something like this to happen. The Ambani family is maybe willing to pay him something, probably not $250 million, because that's insane. A $500 million payout when we look back on it in this sobering light. But tell us your thoughts about, even if this fight did happen, do you want to see it?
Man, I might not even watch this fight if it's free on Netflix. Like, for one, Conor McGregor hasn't won a fight since like 2019. He's coming back from a huge compound fracture on his leg. And he's just irrelevant, man. He's supposed to fight Mike Chandler, backs out. There's always all these rumors going around. And, it's just like that. Just like, they say out of sight, out of mind. I don't really care about Conor McGregor anymore, man. I like hearing him on the mic. Excuse me. I like watching him talk shit. But you look at Logan Paul, who, regardless if he's not a world champion MMA fighter or a world champion boxer, this guy is a huge athlete. He's a professional wrestler. He's been under contract with the WWE. He was a state champion wrestler in high school. He's been training boxing. I mean, he fought Floyd Mayweather. I can't remember. Did he fight Anderson Silva, or did Jake fight Anderson Silva?
Jake fought Anderson Silva.
Regardless, this guy's fought some guys. I don't think Conor McGregor can beat him, to be honest. And, I think if and when this fight does happen, that, Conor's obviously going to do it for a payday. Obviously, as a fighter, he's going to fight for a payday like that. Dude, I'll fight my mom. Like, you know what I mean? There's no hold bars for 250 million, And, something that you brought up that I never really considered, you brought it up a bunch of times. Maybe he's in financial trouble. And he needs something like this, because this is a dangerous fight, man. If he thinks he's going to go in there and roll Jake Paul, or Logan Paul, excuse me, that he has another thing coming. Logan Paul went to decision with Floyd Mayweather. I don't know if you guys remember. I thought Floyd Mayweather carried Conor McGregor into the late rounds and then finished him. He could not finish Logan Paul. I just think Logan Paul is just going to be too big. And, I think Logan's there, it's going to go to decision, and then it's a lose-lose. If he goes to decision with a pro wrestler, like, that looks terrible for MMA fighters. If he loses to a pro wrestler, that's even more. And if he beats a pro wrestler, he's supposed to beat him. With that being said, Conor McGregor might be in dire financial need. He might not care. He might be like, fuck it, I don't care if I win, I don't care if I lose. I mean, obviously, in every single interview, he's going to say, I'm going to win, and Logan sucks, and Logan this, and Logan that. Obviously, he's not going to make it, like he doesn't care. But if he's in dire financial trouble, he might have to take this fight. He might not care about the outcome. All he cares about is payday and making sure his lavish lifestyle can keep going. And whether he's getting 10 million, 50 million, 200 million, 250 million, that's a lot of bread, man, and that can get a lot of people out of a lot of trouble, especially with all these allegations. He's, with all his court, his civil stuff. Like, this money can help pay for that. It can generate some hush money if he's trying to keep people quiet. Like, I mean, he might not be thinking about his legacy right now. He might be thinking like, all right, what do I got to do to make some money to keep people quiet too? And obviously, that's just a theory. That's not a fact. That's just a theory that I might have. So don't take that to the bank. But again, Logan Paul is no joke, and I don't know if Conor can beat him.
I actually do. Well, first of all, and I get that. I'm sure Conor wants to do it. I just think the UFC does not want this to happen for the reasons that I've enumerated before in these other videos. It's going to hurt the brand. And the good thing about the UFC, as I said time and again, when people want to hate on the UFC, they're not looking, I don't believe, they're looking for long-term growth and growth of the organization as well as the sport as a whole. And they wouldn't take a quick payday. To their credit, I want to believe, somebody that believes in the company and the future of the company and whatnot. I would hope that they're not going to take a quick payout just to maybe bump up some salaries in the short term or bump up some bonuses. They want to see the sport grow. And as such, I don't think they would allow Conor to take a boxing match like this where they could put the brand on the line and diminish the brand of mixed martial arts in general. So that's my theory. But yeah, I also think when people are like, I heard somebody else recently say, well, but Conor's set financially. Like, you just don't understand anything about money and how it works. It is irrelevant how much money you make. It is completely irrelevant because if you spend money the way that Conor McGregor does, it doesn't matter. In fact, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you have really bad habits where you're buying Lamborghini yachts, you're buying like all this crazy stuff all over the place, you're usually, most of these guys, maybe not, I could be wrong, but like a yacht, first of all, is a complete sunk cost. You're buying that thing. The value is diminishing from day one. You're having to deal with constant upkeep and maintenance. Some of these larger boats, you have to have staff that live on the boats and vessels that you have to pay continuously. There's massive amounts of regular maintenance and payments that you have to
boat slips? What about boat slips?
What's that? What's a boat slip?
Boat storage.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Imagine you're talking about a 30-foot boat. A 30-foot boat. Say I'm on the water right now. I'm looking at all these boats in the water. They're spending anywhere from $500 to $1,000 to $1,200 a month. And I know that's not a lot, but that's a 30-foot boat. We're not talking about a 200-foot fucking yacht that has inboard engines that are smoking out the whole dock with gasoline burn or diesel burn. Like, I mean, I would imagine a yacht boat slip has to be it might be 50 grand a month.
There you go. And then think about, I don't know how many homes he has. I know he's got a crazy place in Marbella. I'm sure he's got a dope place in Dublin. I heard he has a place in Vegas. Now, again, if he bought those cash, maybe all he's got to do is pay taxes on the properties and whatnot. But I would bet you he probably has mortgage payments on some, if not all of the properties. And that's fine. But it's not infinite when you're spending. And think about all the ways he parties and spends lavishly on all these other things. He's got crazy jewelry, right? He's got crazy watches. These things, even though the raw materials may maintain their value to some extent, when you get them customized and you add on all this crazy stuff that you're getting, like crazy customized jewelry, you can't just like resell it and turn it around as a nice asset, like a liquid asset, like a stock or something like that. So all of these things are going to have diminishing value. And then now I'm sure he's been operating, because you can just tell the way he lives his life. He's so flashy, so concerned with image. You could tell he's probably operating under the assumption that I'm just going to keep making more and more and more money. And that's the way that everything falls apart. When you go on these crazy spending binges and you live your life the way he's been living it, now all of a sudden everything grinds to a halt. And even if you were making, even if you made all this money at this one point, and this is what happens. I'm not making this up out of thin air. This is what happens to the majority of NBA stars as well as football players. I think the statistic is like 60% of NBA players, they're broke within like 3 years or 5 years of retirement. NFL players, it's even shorter. So this is like a very, very, very common thing. And the guys that evade this are not the guys that are blowing money left and right the way that Conor's been blowing it. So again, you go back to people saying he's set, you just don't understand how it works. And in fact, if you have that kind of persona and mentality, sad to say, it's actually worse if you make more money, because you can go way, 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 way deeper into debt, because now you can talk about much higher leveraging opportunities, take out loans and different things like that, buy these extravagant properties with hefty mortgages and whatnot. Think about interest rates right now. God knows how much money he owed. And my point being to all of this to say, I do think he's probably in financial dire straits. And sad to say, even if I think that $250 million payout is nonsense, now that it was so dumb. I can't believe I fell for it. But even if he got 80 million or 100 million, it solves nothing. unless he corrects a lot of these issues that he had. It literally will solve nothing. In fact, it could make things worse. So that's my 2 cents. But we kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent here. Going back to the fight, I don't want to see this fight like Justin. I think it's stupid. I want to see if Conor still has what it takes in the world of mixed martial arts, his true craft. I don't want to see him fight Logan. Jake would be interesting only because Jake is willing to come into MMA, but that's not what I'm interested in just yet. He's got 2 fights on his UFC contract. Let's see what he can do. Who knows? Maybe he can go in and beat Michael Chandler. That would be incredible if he could. Let's give it one more shot. That's what I want to see as an MMA fan. Let's get this fight set up. Let's get it organized. Hopefully that Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler thing is a farce. Maybe this is what will get enough buzz and momentum behind Conor McGregor's name to get the UFC to schedule this in the first quarter of 2025. Wouldn't that be incredible? That's what I want to see. Is there anything else that you really want to see Conor McGregor do in the UFC? Let's forget about these crazy social media influencer boxing matches.
Michael Chandler's the way to go, man. We got a guy again. We talk about his record. He's super tough, but the thing is, he just can't win, man. He has 2 wins. He beat Dan Hooker in his first fight. He beat Tony Ferguson. Those are his only 2 wins in the UFC, and he has 4 or 5 losses. I believe it's 4. And, you know, it's like he's still super tough. He's still super good, but unfortunately, if you're not winning in the UFC, you become irrelevant. This is a perfect time. This is a perfect matchup. You know, Conor's lost 2 in a row to Dustin Poirier back-to-back, coming off a compound fracture. If he can't beat Michael Chandler, who can't beat anybody else in the UFC, and I'm not just saying that, it's the proof is in the pudding. Like he keeps fighting, he keeps losing. You know, Mike Chandler is just not. And again, I know this guy, man. I've trained with this guy. This guy is a savage. But that just goes to show you this is a game of inches. You know, he could be this much behind somebody, and if he can't find a way to win, he can't find a way to win. If 2 guys, Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor, 2 guys that can't find ways to win, somebody's going to win that fight. And that's really going to, you know, tell the tale of where their career is going. Because if Conor can't beat a guy that can't find ways to win fights on his own, like, I mean, where is he? Where is he at, man? And I wouldn't tune into this fight like, oh, wow, this is going to be such a banger. I'm tuning into this fight to see if Conor still has it. I'm not like,
me too.
Or if Mike still has it. You know what I mean? Because again, both of these guys are on their downfall. Conor a lot more than Mike. And I tell you what, Mike Chandler takes his training 10 times more serious than Conor McGregor does, man. And people will be like, oh, well, you don't know that. You don't train with Conor. You're right. I don't train with Conor, but I've trained with Mike. And I tell you what, when that motherfucker walks to the octagon and he looks like a bodybuilder, bro, you can't look like that and not take your training seriously. Conor McGregor is not built like Mike Chandler. Nobody's built like Mike Chandler. His strength conditioning is I mean, I heard a rumor from Ron Frazier that he was training, his strength coach was, you know, a professional football player strength coach, or for a strength coach for the NFL. Like, that's why he looks like that. This guy is a machine, and unfortunately, he just can't find ways to win. And I just think he takes training in MMA so much more serious.
Oh, we lost Justin again. Yeah, but anyways, I think that's the fight to make. Tehran says, I'm sick of McGregor. I still want to see it because it answers the question. What after that horrific leg injury, can he still compete? Fascinating regardless. Is he still at the top? We shall be seen, but that's what we're going to answer. All right, let's move it along. Donald Cowboy Cerrone is returning to the UFC. So, Justin, did you see this announcement? Cowboy wants to come back. I heard that he also wants to fight at 185, but he wants to come back. He says he's only going to take 2 more fights. And the other issue is he's very open about the fact that while he was, quote unquote, retired, he was all right. We lost Justin again. But anyways, yeah, he was taking steroids openly and was on TRT, you know, got really jacked. And I think I'm going to double check this right now. I do believe that's what I heard, that he wants to fight at 185, which is crazy since he used to fight at lightweight. And he had that. I know he fought Conor at what's called welterweight, but let's see this. So Justin's coming back. So Justin, let's get your take first. So Cowboy Cerrone coming back and claiming that he wants to fight at middleweight. What are your thoughts on somebody like this stepping up? Because there's multiple competitors.
I'm gonna tell you why I love it. Because Donald Cerrone said, this is not a comeback. This is just a better ending. And I love that. He's not coming in with the unrealistic expectation of, oh, I want to be the champ again. And I think that's where guys really make a mistake because they just don't have it anymore. And unfortunately, Donald Cerrone doesn't have it anymore. He's old. He's had 100 fights. You know, his reason for wanting to come back is he wants a better ending. You know, if you watch his last fight against Conor McGregor, it was really pathetic in my opinion. Like he looked like he didn't want to be there. He looked like he just was there for the payday. And he said afterwards that, you know, he wasn't there mentally. He wasn't, fuck, he didn't even look like he was there physically. Like he just stood there. He gets rocked by a shoulder check. And, you know, something Donald said during that fight that really it bothered me. He's like, oh, I've never seen that strike before. And I was just like, you never seen that strike before? Like, we do that. I mean, we do that. You're taught that shit in day one. Like, what do you mean you've never seen that before? And, you know, it's again, he's not coming in with the unreal expectations. Like, oh, I'm making another run. He's not making another run. He's only taking 2 fights so he can get to his 30 fight in the UFC. And I think it's awesome. And I think the UFC is going to give him some fun matchups. I don't think they're going to give him killers. What I think is they're going to do is they're going to use him as a stepping stone and give him some up and coming guy that deserves a shot. And, you know, I think that's where his next 2 fights going to be.
I would also like to, because I'd like to see Donald Cerrone, Cowboy Cerrone, come back and get a win. I'd love to see him, I don't know, against like an old school guy like Clay Guida, somebody like that. I don't know if Clay's going to still stick around for another fight, but I would like to see him
Clay's just too small. Clay's just too small.
Oh yeah, he fights at lightweight, so
I think Clay's just too small.
Fair. Now just
I don't
to
know
go
if
back,
you guys can see me right now.
Nope.
I'm just
Nope, we lost you again.
I'm just
But,
my heater service just called me and they need me to answer this.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry.
So just to kind of go through his record, his last few fights, he lost to Tony Ferguson, then he lost to Justin Gaethje, then he lost to Conor McGregor at welterweight, then Anthony Pettis. He fought Nico Price, which was a no contest, but he was gonna lose to Nico Price. What happened was there was some like point deduction, a point violation. Actually, I think at the time it was considered a draw, but Cowboy Cerrone was losing that fight had it not been for like that. It was like an eye poke or something along those lines. Then he lost to Alex Morano, and then last but not least, Jim Miller in 2022. So it's a pretty lengthy losing streak. If you count that no contest as a loss, that's 7 in a row, almost similar to what Tony Ferguson is experiencing now. So it's a pretty rough go, but he's had time off. He's been juicing. He's been recovering. And now he said he just needs 6 months clean and might come back for International Fight Week. Last question, Justin. Do you think it's fair to quote unquote retire, juice for a couple years, and then re-enter the testing pool and come back? I mean, it is within the guidelines. You have to be clean for 6 months. What are your thoughts on juicing while retiring and then returning?
I think juice should be legal all across the board at every aspect. You know, how can you expect him to come in at 50 years old, basically? And when he's not 50, he's in his late 30s, he might be in his late 30s, might even be early 40s. But how can you expect him to come in at 40 years old and compete with a guy's testosterone that's 25? It's just that your body just doesn't. It's just not the same anymore, man. And I'm speaking from experience. When I went to the doctors, got my blood work, I have the test levels of like a 50-year-old man, and my test levels are like 200, and the baseline is 600 to 900. You know, I think that I've always said this, and I always will, is there should be a line like 1,000 or 1,200. As long as you're under that line, you're good. It doesn't matter if it's synthetic. It doesn't matter if it's now when you talk like Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen, they were testing. I think Vitor was like 2,000. Chael Sonnen was 1,400. That's just ridiculous. But again, my natural level is 200. Your natural level, let's say your natural level is 800. How can my body compete with your body from a healing standpoint?
Right.
From a recovery standpoint, it just can't. That's why you see these young guys coming in besides their skills, like they're just so much. And I don't know, man. I think USADA is such bullshit. And I think this drug testing. Oh, you can't, dude. What does it matter if we have the same levels? That's all that matters. If I have 1,000 level testosterone of synthetic testosterone and you have 1,000 level of natural testosterone, that's even to me. That's even. Now, if there's science that says, and I'm not a juice expert by any means. Now, if there's science that says that level 1,000 of synthetic is more potent than 1,000 of natural, okay, I understand that. Then maybe synthetic, the level has to be 800, and your natural can be 1,000. But trying to compete at the highest level, and the other thing is all these foreign fighters, and I know a bunch. And no, not only do I know a bunch, I personally know a bunch that are juiced to the gills. They go to Brazil. USADA is called what? Do you know what the USADA stands for?
United States Anti-Doping Agency.
It's exactly what it stands for. Let's say that again. United States, not Brazilian, not European, not Russian. That's why the Russian fighters, they'll come here for short term, or the Brazilians will come here for short term, because when they're in their country of their own, they don't have USADA coming over, hey, piss in this cup. They have the best doctors, and there's testing it. There's like 3 different testosterones. And again, guys, I'm not an expert on it, but there's like cypionate, and there's like ethanate, and there's a third one. But and some of them last longer. There's like a half-life, like cypionate has to be done, like re-injected every like 4 days. And then there's another one that has to be injected every other day. So if you're trying to do like a short cycle before your drug test, there's actually certain testosterone that you can put to pass on your drug test. And I tell you what, and I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks, that's what most of these Russians are doing, if not all of them. That's what a lot of the Brazilians are doing. And you know what? I'm not going to exclude the USA. A ton of the United States fighters are doing the same thing. They just got better doctors that can help regulate it. And you know what I mean? Like, there's ever since, Martin Kampmann is one of the only world-class fighters that I know of personally that did not juice, man. And he talked about it openly with me. He never did it. But he knows, I mean, you look at Johnny Hendricks, man. You look at George. I even think George St. Pierre was juicing back in the day. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I'm making bold accusation here, but guys, when you talk about the best guys in the world, and a lot of them are my friends, and they're telling me before I even was in the UFC that everybody in the UFC is on juice. I mean, they just are. And, who cares if Donald Cerrone took time off and was on juice? He's testing positive. I mean, dude, I want to see Donald Cerrone return to the UFC juice to the fucking gills. That's what I want to see. I don't want to, man. I think when he gets off the sauce that he's going to lose a lot. And he's going to have a really hard time recovering in his training, and he's going to remember why he retired in the first place.
So just to jump on that, and I want to showcase some of these comments, by the way, so we'll go through some of those. But that's an interesting perspective to have everybody level out at a certain amount of testosterone. Just as an aside, I was listening to Derek from More Plates, More Dates talk about synthetic testosterone. I don't know if you know this, but and maybe you do, synthetic testosterone is primarily synthesized from 2 main sources. One is from yams, which is insane. The other place where it's synthesized from is soybeans, which is really funny because people are like, hey, that guy's a soy boy. And actually, soy is where the synthetic testosterone is often derived from. So soy boys could be something completely different than what people are implying. But anyways, let's showcase some of these comments. So Tehran did tell us, and I did look it up as well and confirm this, Donald Cerrone is 41. We've got Anakin saying, what's up, Anakin? Pern was saying, hey, can we have Justin fight Cowboy Cerrone? That would be interesting.
That's what I'm saying. Let us both get juice to the gills and go in there and fucking scrap, bro.
There's another one from Tyrone. It says Cerrone versus Ferguson. That would be very
So I wasn't going to say this, but that's my next video. That was going to be my next video. That's a
great idea. And that could be both of their maybe retirement fights. Maybe they just come back for one. He comes back for one fight instead of 2. I don't know if he'd like that, but let's see that because they're both such fan favorites. Sometimes I don't like it when you put 2 fan favorites because some person's got to lose. But here in this case, I think both of them, it's a rematch. Tony won the first fight. So if Cowboy did win, it wouldn't be so sad. And we would be so happy for either of them to win. That's a beautiful, great fight, I think, if the UFC doesn't force Tony's hand and pushes him out of the organization. But let's keep going. And then we also see Cerrone versus Tony too. Or not, I think Nick Diaz, man. I don't know. He seems to be having some difficulties. I don't know if I really want to see him fight again. And then Cerrone versus Jorge Magny or Chiesa. I don't know. Jorge Masvidal, maybe. That could be all right. But I think Cowboy Cerrone versus Tony Ferguson is perfect because of the rematch story and because Tony won the first fight. So that could be really interesting. All right, let's move it along. Very fascinating. Maybe we'll come back and talk about this these thoughts on steroids a little bit more in depth later. But I like that idea of having a metric and maybe some sort of like continual testing or monitoring system where you're just constantly monitoring the testosterone levels in a person's body, not just like looking at, hey, what substance are they taking or testing for particular things and just looking at that. I don't know. Could be interesting, but food for thought. All right, next. Moving on to Dakota Ditcheva. I got the pronunciation right now. I double and triple check that pronunciation. I made a video about her on Saturday. Got a bunch of views, like 1,300 views and counting. So cool. Now, Justin doesn't know too much about Dakota Ditcheva, even though He actually knows quite a bit about the PFL and PFL fighters. He's coached some fighters in the PFL. But bro, I'm gonna show Justin and all you guys right now. If you guys haven't seen Dakota Ditcheva, check this out, dude. She is insane. And Justin, what's so cool about her? Remember, we were having the conversation the other day. What's the most important fighting base for mixed martial arts? And I think most people would agree with you. And even I said, because just from what I've heard, it's got to be freestyle wrestling, or you said also could be potentially folk style wrestling as well, the two combined. But this is so interesting because this is again a Muay Thai fighter, Muay Thai base, which I love, coming in and just sparking and dominating people. So I love that it opens up this conversation of, hey, you can have a pure Muay Thai striking background and come in and just be tremendous. So check this out. I'm going to play it without the audio, but just look at some of these highlights, dude. Look at her striking. This is incredible. Okay, so Dakota Ditcheva, and look at the knees. They say she's got the best knees in the game.
And she has a rocking body too, man. Shit.
But look at this. Okay. And she's cool. You got to hear her in her interviews. She's like, look at that. Look at the precision of the kicks and her front kicks. So that's a great roundhouse right to the face. But you got to see her front kicks and teeps. Look at the knees. Devastating. So, and the body work she does, not only with knees, but also body shots, jabs, crosses, and uppercuts to the body. Look, she drops it. Look, I think she drops it. Look at that. Do you see that shot?
Oh, yeah.
She dropped her with a body shot, and she does that over and over. And I think that's something that is underutilized in general. Look at that. Clean striking. What are your first? I know this is a highlight reel. What are your thoughts? Look at that. Again,
she looks great. She looks great. She looks like a killer. But, unfortunately, she can't get the credit. And, and I'm going to get slapped around for saying this, and because I work with the PFL president, but you can't get the credit, you can't get the accolades until you do that in the UFC, unfortunately. And she looks great. She looks great. But who is she beat?
Tyler Santos, who went to a split decision with what's it called? Shevchenko.
Okay, well that's pretty legit.
That's pretty
is
legit,
she playing?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, again, and I'm not dogging her by any. She looks great. Oh, she looks hot. She the PFL could really build this, but eventually she's going to get to a point. She wins that $1 million, maybe wins it twice, and then just like Kayla Harrison is going to have to go to the UFC and see what she can do against the best in the world. And the PFL does have incredible fighters, and let me tell you this: the PFL has world-class fighters. Some guys in the PFL can beat guys in the UFC, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard." Listen, you fucking idiots. I train with guys in the PFL. I train with guys in the UFC. Guys in the PFL come there and roam through some guys in the UFC, guys. Just because you're in a different brand, you can't say I'm wrong. This is not a thought I have. I get to witness it every single day. Sadabu, who goes in there and tees off on Sean Strickland. I'm not saying he wins every round or beats him every time, but he wins rounds against Sean Strickland. And you guys don't even know who Sadabu is. He's the PFL champ. He went in there and beat Rory McDonald handily. Like, the PFL has some incredible fighters, just like this girl. Unfortunately, because the UFC is such the big brand, nobody's going to give her credit for any wins until she does it in the UFC.
I agree with you. Now, in an interview that I saw recently of her on Ariel Helwani show, she said, because she's happy, she has won the $1 million tournament. She's probably going to win it again next year. But she does say she plans to stick around in the PFL for one more year. That's what she said. But she does eventually want to come to the UFC and test herself out. Now, she's only 26, so that would mean maybe she would make her debut at 27, which I like. But what I said in my video is, for me being such a diehard UFC fan and believing like you do as well, that while the PFL is amazing fighters, the best of the best are most likely in the UFC. And her dream matchup is Shevchenko. I pray and hope that the UFC changes her mind and snags her now, because to me, what's so exciting is when you have young fighters like her come in at this young age where they can win a belt at 26, 27, and then have this super long reign just to go out there and do things that nobody's ever done. Maybe get 3, 4, 5. Who knows how many title defenses she could get? Maybe 10. Maybe she could set a record and be the new face of women's MMA. And the thing that completes her is her personality. She is, again, one of those people. Remember, I always say, what we gravitate towards as fans is that authenticity, and that's what she has in spades. She's just herself. She's cool. She's awesome. She's super tight with her family. Her parents and her brother go everywhere with her. Her brother's her main training partner. He holds pads for her. They spar together. Like, I love everything about her. She's a phenomenal role model. She's just like a cool person. And I actually love Kayla Harrison as well. I think she's got a great personality. But Dakota Ditcheva could be, I think she could be way bigger. And man, I don't know. It's so exciting. Plus the fact that she's a Muay Thai trained fighter, because I love Muay Thai so much. And just to see what she can do with her Muay Thai and how her grappling has developed and her takedown defense. And even she actually has one submission. Okay, she's undefeated, one submission. Everything else is a knockout.
What something we haven't mentioned yet is what weight is she?
She fights at 125. She said she wouldn't go down, but she would potentially go up eventually, up to 135. So yeah, she currently fights at flyweight.
I don't see, unfortunately, I think Shevchenko is at the end of her career. I think she's going to retire in the next 6 months. She
Oh,
might even, I mean, at least in the next year, you know, especially coming off a loss, getting it back. I don't see her fighting for very much longer. She doesn't, in my opinion. And listen, I love Shevchenko, man. She is one of my favorite. Holly Holm, you know, Shevchenko, like those are two of my favorite girl fighters, and there's a couple others as well. But I mean, she just doesn't look like the same fighter she used to be. And I'm
mhm.
not throwing shade at her. I think she's just, you know, she's getting older.
Yeah,
And, you know, in that career, she's already been there and done that. She's done everything. You know what I mean?
yeah,
The only thing, in my opinion, she hasn't done is beat Amanda Nunes. And it's like, besides that, she's done everything. Why, if you were her, why would you stick around for a young, hungry, up and coming girl to transfer over to your league that you've owned almost your whole career to try to knock you off? I don't think it's a good idea for her. And this girl's a killer and she's hungry. And imagine being 27, 28 years old in a year or two, being able to fight someone that you've looked up to for the last 10 years.
yeah,
And they're not the same person. She's not fighting her in her prime. I think it's a bad idea. After just seeing this highlight, I think it's a bad idea.
yeah. It
And
probably
I
is.
hope it doesn't have. I mean, for the girl, for Dakota, that'd be great, and what an incredible experience it'd be. But being a Shevchenko fan, I don't want to see it happen. I don't
Sure.
want to see her go against an up and coming killer. I don't want to see her knocked out. I want to see her retire with the belt. She's such an inspiration. She's such a great person. That's why I like her so much. She dances and she's happy. She's never in any drama. She just comes out
Right.
there, puts it all on the line every time. And I hate seeing these legends get knocked off by these up and coming guys.
I feel the same way. That's kind of was my feeling about wanting John Jones not to have to fight Tom Aspinall. But
Of
again,
course.
if he gets that crazy payday and he wants to do it, actually, but also I think John Jones will win that fight. Then more power to him. If he's going to get 20, 30, 40 million, whatever he wants. All right, go for it. And it could be something similar with Shevchenko. They could actually get a great payday as a main or even a co-main event on another fight card. Man, it could be pretty sick to see those two square off. I'd love to see it just from that perspective if it's something Shevchenko's interested in. But again, she is 36, as you mentioned, so maybe that won't happen. But let's go to Dakota Ditcheva. Let's hope the UFC gets her sooner rather than later. I hope they get her out of her contract and bring her over right away, but we shall see. All right, last but not least, last topic, just a fun one. I heard some people talking about this. I heard Beneil Dariush talk about this, and I wanted to just run this by you and get your thoughts. Okay. He was asked by an MMA junkie, hey, how do you think fighters today in the current UFC roster, how would they do? Like, how many of them do you think could have won UFC 1? Now, we have to take that with a couple of clarifications. If you guys don't remember, UFC 1, there was no weight classes. People would fight in gis and all sorts of stuff. But obviously, the levels were very, very different. But somebody like Justin, who fights at lightweight, but maybe, walks around at 170, 180, maybe even 185, would go in there at that weight class, but might have to fight somebody at 250 or 300 pounds. But the skill differential would be massive because a lot of those guys didn't really know how to fight. Even Royce Gracie, who was dominating at that point, had great jiu-jitsu. But if you look at the evolution today, and people have even said, Beneil even talked about this, like Kron Gracie, as much crap as people gave him, he said would walk through Royce Gracie back in the day. So, Justin, I just wanted to turn over to you to get your expert thoughts as a professional mixed martial artist training at Extreme Couture, fighting at the UFC at the highest level of the sport. I don't know if you ever thought about this, but how do you think you would do in UFC 1? Do you also agree with Beneil that you would just like smoke everybody, even if you had to fight people 100 pounds heavier than you?
So here's the thing, man, and I'm not going to sound cocky or overconfident in this. From a skill standpoint, I would be better than every single person in the roster. There's no question about it. When you talk about, the Gracies, man, and they're incredible jiu-jitsu. Believe it or not, when you look back at their jiu-jitsu, it was the best in the world at that time. But there's so much evolution in the sport. They're very elementary in their jiu-jitsu. They're not doing anything that's like, oh my God, I can't believe they were doing that. It's very, very basic. I actually feel my skill level from a grappling standpoint is better than it was then. With that being said as well, it's why would I even give him the chance to grapple? I would keep it on the feet and I'd keep waving him up and I would knock him out. Now, where I would struggle or who I would struggle against is someone like Tank Abbott, who is just a bar brawler that does, and real talk, like, hey,
Yeah,
am I
he's
more
crazy.
skilled than Tank Abbott?
Yeah,
Me
yeah,
at
yeah,
my
for sure.
right now, I'm on my downfall and I'm 100 times more skilled than him. But he has huge size. He's strong. He has a good base. Wrestling, I'd struggle with someone like him. I'd struggle with someone like Ken Shamrock, who's juiced to the gills. Frank Shamrock, juiced to the gills, and they have good enough wrestling or grappling to survive onside. It'd be very tough. Now, if I catch their neck, they're in a big problem. Again, in all aspects of the sport, whether it's striking, wrestling, grappling, from a strategic, from a technique standpoint, I am light years ahead. But again, these guys are huge and they're juiced to the gills. They look like the 1980s superheroes. Like, when you look at like Jean-Claude Van Damme, or when you look at remember what was the fucking movie he was in? When they did the Kumite, Bloodsport.
Mhm.
Like these guys are huge and juice and they're athletic. Ken Shamrock. I know he's a joke now because he lost to Tito Ortiz, but fighting guys, and look at Tito Ortiz who beat Ken Shamrock. These are collegiate level athletes. Tito Ortiz was a collegiate wrestler. I think I would struggle with those guys. I'm not saying I would win. I'm not saying I would lose. From a technical standpoint, I'd obviously be better than everybody. But again, with that being said, size is a factor. I do think that I would win because remember, there's no time limit.
Yeah.
Remember, early on in UFC, you fight until it's over. I think because of that, I would have the advantage because I'm in so much better shape than all those guys back in the day. But it wouldn't have been dominant. I would have been just like a Gracie. I would have come in there, took my welts. But I think at the end of the day, I would have been victorious.
All right. Well, that was just a fun one to end on. I'm going to throw up a couple comments real quick, and then we're going to roll out for the end of the show. Princess, Tank is no fun. Tank Abbott's one of my favorite fighters, too.
I love Tank
watching.
Abbott, dude. I love Tank Abbott.
He's incredible and so much
and
fun to watch.
here's another thing. And one of my all-time favorites, and I've been so, man, I mean, this podcast has given me such an avenue. I've done a couple podcasts since we started with Don Fry.
Oh, yeah.
I do not want to fight Don Fry. Are you fucking kidding me? Dude, go watch. This guy's a psychopath. And, it's funny. I love doing a podcast with him because so it's me, Adam Hunter, and Don Fry. We've done it 2 or 3 times. Adam will ask me a question, and I love Don for this. He does it every time because Don, I'm a huge fan of him, but he doesn't do his homework. Adam will be like, all right, Justin, what do you think of this matchup? And I'll give this long 5-10 minute analysis of what I think, kind of like in your videos. And then he'd be like, all right, Don, what do you think? He's like, well, basically, I agree with Justin and everything he had to say. And then it's like crickets. It's like, all right, then, moving on. And he does that every single time. Every single time. So, anyways, I mean, those guys, I mean, when you stand next to, I've stood next to Don Fry before I was in the UFC, before I was even professional. I went there, and he's an intimidating guy, man. And I tell you what, that's not somebody I'd want to fight.
Right. Some of these old school fights, if you guys haven't watched them, oh my God, we had those DVDs back in the day when I was in college. We used to watch Tank Abbott, all the legends back in the day. What's his name? Vitor Belfort, when he was super juiced, was just such an animal, going out and just rocking people with this crazy boxing. I bet if I look back on it now, the boxing technique and all that wouldn't look nearly as impressive as it did when I was watching it back then. But it's just a lot of fun. I thought the sport was so interesting when it came out. Pern says, yeah, Fry is another one, that old school brawler style. Don't get hit, LOL. Last but not least, we got Robert Gulguy, I believe. It says, MMA is a fantastic sport. Welcome to the stream, and Marab will smoke Umar. We shall see in just a few weeks.
I love
all right,
that,
guys.
Robert.
That's it for today. And I just want to apologize one more time about posting that video about Conor and Logan. I will promise in the future to do way more due diligence and way more research before posting any story like that. Again, No, not that it's any excuse, but I'm not a journalist, and I'm going to be much more careful in the future about talking about stories where I'm quote unquote breaking the stories or talking about newly released stories. So I'm now realizing there's a lot of shenanigans. Hence, we also got kind of taken by Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler, which I realized sort of today in an afterthought that, hey, that's not even legit as well. So we're going to do much better on that.
And that's the thing that I saw a poster of it. It said UFC London, so I thought it was legit too.
These trolls, man, it's so whack. It's a dope fight. Let's hope it happens, or let's see Michael Chandler versus Conor, something like that. But anyways, Pern says my speculations were fine. Hey, thank you. I mean, I did say in the video, if this is true, I'm waiting for a UFC announcement. I mean, I did clarify and give that caveat, but still, I'm going to be much more careful. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining. We really appreciate it. Thank you for all the support. We are growing. This is our last show of the new year. Let's go into 2025. We're going to rock out this year. Thank you guys so much. We've had a blast, and we will see you in the next episode this Friday in 2025. Thank you guys so much. Take it easy.